All right.
How you doing, buddy?
Doing all right, brother. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so my next guest is Derek Wright, good friend of mine, and he is somebody I've been looking forward to talking to for a while now. Derek, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody? I'm a little bit nervous for this one, man. Not gonna lie.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, ex-military, was in the Air Force, signed up for six, did five, Palace chased the last one, got out, did 3 years in the reserve, and then overseas contracted for a couple of years.
Right on,
So
man.
that's the long and short of the military.
So, where are you from? Give me the background.
Get into deets. Yeah, I grew up in Southern Oregon, Grants Pass, went to North Valley High School. I got an older sister by a couple of years. Homegrown in Oregon. After high school, I spent about a year getting in trouble and doing all the wrong things that a
Yeah.
lot of people do. Then after that, I joined the military. It was a couple of reasons behind it. It was an escape to get out of the small town grind, but it's also kind of the family business. My dad was in the Army. My uncle was in the Army. My cousin's Marine, Navy, sister, Navy. It was the
Huh.
patriotic thing to do. So
What'd your dad do in the military?
he was a MP. He was
Right. Nice.
I do have two cousins, the sister and myself, that were all wartime. My sister and one of my cousins was a ground force day one Fallujah.
This is your sister.
But my sister was actually, she was a doc. So she
Okay.
was in the Navy, but she worked with the Marines. And so she was down there in Fallujah, and my cousin was infantry in the Marines. But he was day one Fallujah.
You got out of there okay?
Best that anybody did.
What'd you do in the military?
I was a mechanic. And so I was a 2A655, which is a hydraulics pneumatic specialist. Basically, it's just a grease monkey that specialized in hydraulics and pneumatic systems.
What kind of
And
stuff were you
so
working at?
I worked on a KC 135. That was the start for the bread and butter.
Okay.
In the reserves, I switched over to Blackhawks.
Nice.
And from there, I followed aviation for most of my life. So I built helicopters over in Arizona at MD Helicopter. Did that for a couple of years. And then I've did more reserves, like I said, in Davis Moth, and that was C-130s and 60s, so Blackhawks.
Right on. So I didn't really expect to start heading down this road so fast, but how old are you?
I'm 40.
You're 40 years old, and you were recently had some medical or have some medical issues that have come up. I would like to hear your story from the beginning, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
I think the premise for me being on here was to reach out and be almost like a syndicate story to where other people can relay and relate, bounce off of the same, if not the same, maybe just the same kind of, story or path. So I volunteered for every deployment.
Mhm.
So when I was active in just the 5 years, I did 9 deployments, which Air Force deployments are not like Army or Marines. So I won't pretend that we do that.
Yeah.
But they were the 120-day cycle. So it's 4 months. Most of our deployments weren't actually to war zone areas because of the machine that I worked on, KC-135, which is the Stratum tanker. For people that don't know, it's a refueling aircraft. So it refuels bombers and everything else, but from a distance, from a safe distance. So after my third or fourth deployment, I came back and had this weird growth on my collarbone. It was a lesion. So we went into the doctor to go get looked at. Long story short, he said, "Yeah, that looks weird. We'll get it looked at." Deployment after deployment later, after each time you have to do your med intake, they said, "Yeah, that still looks weird. We should get it looked at." And it just never got looked at, never went any further. Fast forward to when I was in Arizona, I ended up waking up in bed one night and the lesion had torn up and I had blood all over me, all over the pillow and all over my sheets. So I went into, and this is on my own accord. This is military related. I used my own health insurance and went into the doctor. He said, "Yeah, that looks funky. Go to a dermatologist." Dermatologist says, "Yeah, that's funky, but don't worry. It's probably nothing. We'll biopsy it." That's when they found out that I had melanoma cancer. And it had measured at 2 millimeters, which I guess is large enough to be considered malignant. So it was 3 days, 4 days later, I was rush emergency surgery to get the tumor taken out. They did a couple of checks, saltwater radiation tests to see which way it drained from my lymph nodes. And, they said, you're good. You're one of the lucky ones. So they put me on a regimen to where I had to go to a dermatologist every year and get looked at to make sure that I didn't have any more spots that looked funky, lesions that could be construed as some type of cancer.
How old were you when this happened?
Oh, this was just a long time ago. I was maybe 23, 24.
Yeah. So you're 23, 24. No other things pop up for you until when?
Well, I went through the same protocols that they say to do for, once a year, you go to a dermatologist, you get looked at. And some of those years were missed just because of how complex the VA can be, as I'm sure anybody that has medical has sampled some of that, especially for specialty items.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was fast forward until I was 38 years old. I was working in Virginia, and I got lightheaded up on a ladder, and thought the regular, oh, I'm dehydrated and needed some food. So, ate a banana, drank some water, went to the next job site, and got out of the truck, and I didn't know where I was, didn't know what I was doing. And so I was like, better go to the hospital, which if you're, anything like the next guy, you don't go to the hospital unless you got something blown off of you or you're bleeding for no reason.
Yeah.
So I ended up in the hospital, after all night of being there. Doctor comes back out and says, you need to sit down for this. And I said, no, just tell me what's going on. And he was like, well, they did a couple of CT scans. It turns out I had a brain tumor. And from what they can see was I had a few tumors in my chest, some in my throat and some in my chest. So they said, we're going to admit you today. And I said, no, I'm going home. So I caught the next thing smoking, came home to my wife. And lucky for me, I've made contacts and friends in the medical industry. So the gentleman that I know, he made a few phone calls and made it possible for me to get seen by really competent doctors. So fast forward to when I get home, I'm back in the ER because, like everything else in healthcare, it's backed up to the fullest, to where if you want to see a specialty, they can get you in a month or so. So the circumvent around that, the way to get around it is to go to the emergency room, and if they find it there, then they immediately start pushing you in to get you seen. So after a battery of tests and quite a few doctors, oncologists, neurosurgeon, you name it, come to find out I had 10 tumors throughout my body. So I had one in my esophagus, one in my lymph node behind my esophagus. I had one in my lung, one in my brain, one in my back. And then basically the full lymphatic system was the rest of it, everywhere from the groin up to my neck. So I guess as the story goes, I was going through private insurance at the time, and you have to battle with insurance pretty hard. I had a really wonderful oncology doctor. She's phenomenal. And they did a PET scan and figured out that I was stage 4 melanoma, that whatever my initial melanoma was that was on my collarbone developed legs and started running through my body. When I was diagnosed with cancer the first time, I had went through the military, I went through the VA, and they went back to my records and they said, yeah, you're documented 5 times in here that you noticed it. The doctor even looked at it and said, yeah, you need it looked at. No action was taken. Yeah, until I decided to do it myself after I'd torn open the lesion. So with that, the military said, this was after the first surgery for my first time in cancer. And so I'd gone through the surgery and they said, okay, we think we got it all. You're good to go. Well, I filed all that with the VA and they said, yeah, you're right. It's military connected. You caught it, but we're not giving you anything for it. Because as of now, you're considered remission there's no tumor anymore.
So when you're 0% rated with the VA, you can't just walk in there and ask for services from them without having to pay out of pocket.
It's 0% based on remission. Yeah, I would be considered 100% if I was not in remission.
Yeah.
It's an automatic 100%. But the fact that I filed after and everything was done after, because it was such a rush emergency situation,
Yeah.
that ultimately I didn't get any financial assistance or help through that.
As far as going in there for checkups and stuff like that, would they even see you for that?
Yeah, they would.
At 0%, they would have?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I guess that's good to know.
As a pushing forward, then through the powers that be, I ended up, I filed again with the military, and I made the mistake of going down to, it was like a county office.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, so
I probably just shouldn't say anything about that. I've got nothing but bad things to say about that experience.
Well, I don't think you're alone, buddy, because that is a big problem. Some VSOs so counties have a veteran service officer that veterans can go in and help you file a claim, but most of those guys might be one guy for an entire county that has thousands of veterans in there, and they're overwhelmed and they just push shit right under the desk intentionally or unintentionally. And so they're not a lot of help. So
to an extent, right? You can see where you would want to prioritize cases as it be. When I walked back in there, I told them what the oncologist told me. She says, look, you might have 2 years, and that's a maybe. We're going to try to attack this thing as hard as you can. My advice to you is that you get all your affairs in order. So that's when I went in and I told the VSO. I said, I'm terminal. I need help filing my paperwork. I don't know what I'm doing. Please help. And he says, is it a pre-existing claim? And I said, yeah, it is. It's based off of my last one. Let's, just file the info. And he goes, okay, we'll do it. He spends maybe 5 minutes clicking stuff. And then he goes, okay, you're good to go. And I said, all right, great. I called the VA like 4 months later and they said, we don't have any paperwork. I don't know what you're talking about. So I made an appointment, went up to the federal building up in Portland. And they go, yeah, the guy, whoever filed it didn't actually file it correctly or at all. So he just got kicked back and rejected. So I made an appointment with them to sit down with all of my paperwork and all of my medical documents, and they were outstanding. People up in Portland.
Good. So that was a couple of years ago. You've obviously been battling this stuff now. What types of treatment and surgeries have you gone through, and what are you looking at right now?
Yeah, I mean, for everybody out there that's dealing with something close to similar or just a little bit of the medical side of things, keep a positive mentality. It's the only thing that you can do. You might have nights where you drink a bottle of whiskey and you howl at the moon, or you just want to beat the shit out of somebody. There's all different. You're on this emotional roller coaster. All humility and pride leaves. It's really a humbling experience to know that your ticket is pulled at a half-life situation. So after that became a battle with the private insurance because I didn't turn it over to the military yet. I was afraid they were going to, screw it up. So immediately they start me on a double shot of immunotherapy, which is basically a chemo deal. Now, it makes you sick as a dog. I don't know. Maybe other people have different outcomes. They have different things that happen to them. Maybe I was one of the lucky ones that just had to go through hell and back.
Hmm.
But yeah, the first thing they did is they put me on the double shot of immunotherapy. It immediately just sucks the soul out of you as far as your strength, your ability to do anything. You can wake up in the morning and you might get out of bed and you're just so sore that you feel like you just got beat to hell. And that might be your day, after the treatment. It might be your day for the next 3 to 4 days. That's all you can do to put some underoos on and some slippers and go make a cup of coffee. That was the first obstacle. Then after that, they decided they were going to do an endoscopy and a colonoscopy because of what results I had on a PET scan, which is basically a full body MRI. And they found out that I had colitis and H. pylori, which I don't think those are related to the cancer. It's just an additional caveat. And they said that it could be signaled through as an autoimmune problem, because one of the problems that happens with immunotherapy is all these autoimmune deficiencies that you end up. So your immune system is low. Whatever bad bacteria that you have in your body can amplify whatever, like just my medical that I went through just the last 2 days, I had some kind of like little scab in my ear.
Mhm.
Well, now it turned into basically like a lockjaw scenario, and I have to be on antibiotics because my body can't fight it. It's almost like an AIDS patient.
Yeah.
My jaw's loosened up a little bit. I can smile again. They had you take this magical potion before you go in for an endoscopy and a colonoscopy, and it empties your bowels and it empties your stomach and everything. And for me, it just never stopped. So it's only supposed to last, that 24 hours, your 12 hours, whatever it is. And then your body is empty and your body knows to stop. Well, mine didn't. So it just kept doing that for the better half of a month.
Oh my God.
And I couldn't get out of bed. I lost 65 pounds in a month. And, you lose all your strength, you start getting demoralized a little bit, lots of hope. And then they figured out what was going on there. So they put me on a large dose of steroids. And that's another mood swing. It's not the good steroids that make you jacked.
No.
It's the ones that make you like lose your shit and talk 1,000 miles an hour. It's like you did a line of coke, and
At least you're getting something good out of it.
when you're that weak and you're not partying, it's not fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that, I ended up doing my brother-in-law's wedding as an ordained minister.
All right. Hey.
Yeah,
Are you going by father or what are you going
yeah.
by?
The Hominis Dominus. Yeah, you can call me minister. You can call me father. It's fine.
Father Derek. Got it.
So the day that I did that, I started getting joint pain, and it started just in my knees. And went back to the hospital, and they said, yeah, it's common in immunotherapy. It's part of an autoimmune problem again. So here's some pain meds. So after that, the next day it progressed from the joint pain from my knees down to my feet. The day after that was from my hips down to my feet. And I didn't go back to the doctor at that point, just because they had said that they don't know what to do about it other than pain pills. So I started eating those like Skittles. And I think the following 2 days, it was basically all my extremities. So everything from your shoulders out to your fingertips, from your hips all the way down to your feet. And like, I'm sure most guys that listen to your podcasts, we all know pain. We've been there, we've had it. You've broken a thing, you've pulled a muscle, some people, BMXers, knock their teeth out and everything else, right? This isn't like any kind of pain that you've ever had. It was torture. It was like holding on to a bull wire, not an electric fence, but like a bull fence. And you can't let go. You don't ever let go. So I stayed up straight for about 3 days, and you're just getting shocked to hell and back because your joints won't leave you alone. So I ended up going back to the emergency room, and they still didn't know what was going on with me. They pumped me up on pain meds and sent me back home. You know, my wife, she was a nursing degree, and so she gets on the Google machine and figures out a thing or two. And she goes, "Well, we tried doing the steroid shots in your knees. I forget what those are called, but cortisone shots."
We're not doctors.
So I do the shots in my knees, and then my joint pain completely goes away.
Nice.
And it hasn't been back since. Thank God. Yeah, that was a win.
Yeah, shout out to
And
her.
that was, yeah. That was about, it was shortly after that was when I ended up running into you. And you helped me with a lot more of the paperwork to get the ball rolling at the VA to be able to get the appointments that I did have, to get compensated, and to get the VA to back me on the medical care that I needed. And then right after that, that's when they found out that I was diabetic. But they didn't know that I was diabetic because I ended up down in another emergency room down in Medford. And they treated me like a junkie as a patient. That was pretty awful.
So did they know your history?
My oncologist gave me this card, and she said it's the ultimate card. She says it has her personal contact information. It allows you to fast forward and access my chart. And it basically says that I'm dying of cancer. You know, consult anybody that you need to. Here's all the phone numbers. Here's all the stuff.
They just think you're trying to get scripts.
If you're diabetic, if your sugars get too high, then you basically go into pancreatitis. Pancreatitis is known with alcoholism. So people put themselves into pancreatitis to that. And I'm assuming that's how they were treating me for it. The doctor came in and I told him what was going on, and talked to the nurses, told them what was going on. They gave me some pain meds, and they were supposed to move me up to the next floor to run some more tests. And that took like an entire day. So after the pain meds, you basically pass out. They give you Dilaudid and something else, knocks you out cold. You wake back up and you're fine for another 45 minutes. And then right around another hour or two is the witching hour where your pain, it jumps from a 5 to a 10 within 30 minutes. And pancreatitis, if nobody's had that, or if you don't know what that is, it's like somebody stabbed you in the stomach with a knife and they just leave it there. And if you try to move a lot, it's like somebody's twisting it. It's painful. So the nurses and the doctor would come back in and they said, "Well, we've given you too much for the pain meds, so we're not going to give you more until the time limit." Which doesn't make any sense to me, especially since I'm not a junkie. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm literally just dying of cancer. And I think that's why my oncologist gave you that pass go really fast card, was because having cancer, all of your pain is amplified. Your body is 10 times more hypersensitive to it. So when you have an issue, for a regular person, if you were just to walk in and have a little bit of pancreatitis, maybe it's a slower climb to a 10. But for a cancer patient, you go from 0 to 50 real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So it got so bad at that hospital to where they gave me like 3 or 4 rounds of knocking me out with the Dilaudid. And the last time that they had come back, they wouldn't give me any more pain meds. But I said, "Get me the fuck out of here." I said, "Take me to another hospital, call my wife." I'm begging them to just leave me alone and take me to a different hospital. And they kept shushing it. They're like, "No, it's okay. It's okay. You're going to the next floor now." They inject me again with more pain meds. I'm out. When I wake up, I'm in the next floor. Thank God. Because that was tortured. I think it was the same hospital that was having those issues where people
that was Asante, and they're getting.
I don't know which one I was at, man.
Yeah, there was one where they were jacking the pain meds and giving the people water or some sort of.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
Hopefully it wasn't that one. If it was, you might have a case.
Well, I ended up getting out of that hospital and they said, we don't know what's wrong with you. Everybody just kept chalking it up to an autoimmune deficiency or a problem. So I end up at 3 more ERs it's basically one a week. And the same thing, I'm going back into pancreatitis every time. And the last ER that I was at, they said, yep, you're having an autoimmune problem because you're type 1 diabetic now.
Oh, wow.
You're type 1 diabetic because the cancer basically is making, or the immunotherapy is making your gallbladder not work. So after that, they said, when's your next appointment with your oncologist? And they said, it's like in a week. And they were like, okay, take these tablets. They were like glucose tablets. So take these and, that should hold you over until your next appointment. But if you're in serious pain or you go back into pancreatitis, you go to the ER. And I said, okay. So right around, I don't know, it was like day 3 or day 4, I ended up not in pancreatitis anymore, but I went into like a full system shutdown. My liver and my lungs, they all just were running at 10% capacity or 20% capacity. And I was laying there in bed and my wife finally was like, we got to get you there. Your appointment's today. Let's go see what the doctor says. So I can't even make it to the floor for my oncology. They ended up, thank God, some nurse came and found me, posted up, leaning over the side of a wall, and she went and got a wheelchair and wheeled me into my appointment. And my oncologist, she was like, wow, you look horrible. What's going on? And I can't breathe at this point. It was as close to death as you could get. So back in the ER I went. And I spent another week up in the cancer, I think it's the cancer recovery ward. So that's when they started treating me as a diabetic. And basically, after that, now that I've climbed almost the summit of the mountain, the next battle was my brain tumor because I had to go back in for scans repeatedly. It was like every 4 months because my brain tumor was growing at a rapid pace. Apparently, for other people that see this, there isn't just one class of melanoma. They have additional classes. Some of them are like your standard melanoma, and then they have a different kind that is highly adaptive and highly aggressive. Unfortunately, that's the one that I have. So my brain tumor was tripled in size over the last 3 months, and then again, it had tripled in size from that in another 3 months. So they were basically telling me, they said, hey, we finally got your body figured out. Like you're going to be physically okay, but your brain tumor is going to kill you in basically less than a year. They said, so what you can do is you can do radiation. And I was very thankful for the neurologist that I had because he didn't have bedside manner, which I'm very thankful for. It was just black and white,
Yeah.
It was like a slow Tuesday for him. He goes, look, you're going to die in probably a year. He's like, if you do radiation, it might give you 2 years, might give you 2.5 years. At this point, my other tumors had started receding because of the immunotherapy. But the immunotherapy doesn't cross into the brain blood barrier.
Okay.
So the brain tumor is now the biggest obstacle that I have. So I reached out to the neurosurgeon and he was very honest about it. And he said, look, yes, I can do the surgery. He said, but we don't do a lot of these. And where my brain tumor was, mine was bored inside deep into your brain in the frontal lobe, which is extra scary because that's where all your motor function, your memory, it's everything that you use on a daily basis. So he said, I can do the surgery, but the chances of you walking off the table are slim to none. If you do make it, you're probably, the chances are you're going to be close to a stroke victim. if not a vegetable. And I said, well, that's not good news, doc.
No.
So I said, can we outsource this? Can we get a referral to somebody?
That knows what they're doing.
There we go.
Right.
Can we get a referral to somebody that might be not a white belt in this? So he goes, oh yeah, absolutely. So he put in a referral, and I had a friend of the family trying to get a hold of, or I can't remember. It was like something Cancer of America. It's the big one.
Yeah.
And they basically said, no, you're too far along. You're stage 4. You're fucked.
Thanks for the help, guys.
So I ended up talking to my oncologist, and I said, there's only 4 or 5 places in the entire US that do that type of brain surgery and have very, very good survival rates. And one of the places is in Texas. I think there's one in Texas, there's one in Maryland, one in North Carolina, and one in Sacramento or San Francisco. So she reached out to the doctor in San Francisco and said, here's this guy that's not a succubus on society, and he's a family man, and he's good, decent person. So it was like the week after I got out of the hospital with all the pancreatitis and the diabetic stuff and everything else that they said, hey, we're going to do your brain surgery.
Oh, yeah.
I just broke down. I'm just crying with my wife because all of our friends and family, they had different aspects of what I should do. The brain surgery wasn't good odds, right? So they were begging me to do the radiation because at least then I would get the 2 years, maybe, which is better than dying on the table. But I also did enough research and talked to enough doctors to where if you do the radiology or if you do the radiation, how it works is they'll radiate a spot, but you have to remember that that tumor is actually like a living organism. So when it senses danger, it tries to leave and it turns into like a dandelion and it escapes.
Yep.
It finds another spot that's safe and then it reattaches itself. And so one of the doctors had told me, he said, yeah, we've done radiation on a patient like this before. And within a year, I think he said a year and a half, he had 10 additional tumors that had developed on his brain. Now, so I had the conversation I had with my wife is I said, I'm going for big air. If I'm going to die,
Go big.
it's my time. Whether it's limped through for another year and a half, that matters nothing to me. I'll still never be here to watch my daughter grow up or be a part of more Christmases. So I'm going to put all my eggs in the basket. I'm going for big air. And I was like, if it works and the immunotherapy keeps working, then I can hold off. So these guys are making it 10, 15, 20 years, even with an advanced cancer like I got. So I opted for the big air. Got a hold of the guy from San Francisco, phenomenal doctor, by the way. We did a video conference, much like this. He walked me through it. He said, 95% chance you're going to survive. He
Nice.
said, you're
like that.
And those are great odds. That's a lot better than 15%, which the last doctor gave me.
Yes. Yeah. He needs more practice, but not on you.
Yeah, the doctor down in San Francisco, he was like, look, and he's like Italian or he's got a little accent, and he's like, look, he's like, I do 4 of these a day.
Nice.
This is a slow Tuesday. You're fine. I do this all the time. I was like, all right, well, man, I like the confidence. He said, your biggest obstacle is going to be post surgery because my body just went through hell and back over the last year. 60 pounds down, don't have any strength. My lungs are absolute shit right now because of all of the damage, my liver, my kidneys, and everything. He said, so you've got a month to prepare, get your body in as best a shape as you can. And so I did. Every morning I woke up at 4:00 in the morning. I'd go for a 2-mile walk because I can't run. Could barely make the 2-mile walk when I started. And clean eating, tried to put back on a little weight. It got to the point where I could do maybe 5 push-ups. which is, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but at the time it was,
Walking 2 miles is a lot for most of our society. So you're a healthy dude in physical fitness aspect.
when I'm almost dead, I'm still healthier than some.
Than most. Yeah.
So, we have a really nice support system. For the surgery, I went down to San Francisco. My wife and I, we first they had to put me through gamma knife radiation, it was really kind of cool. They put you in this head trap,
Mhm.
and it stabilizes your head. And they have these turn cranks that crank into your head in the front and the back, and it stabilizes it. And then they latch this container that's on your head into the machine. And they're able to, gamma knife radiation is like, they found that like 20 different beams of lasers from different angles focused on a specific spot will actually not hurt your brain. It bores through exactly to pinpoint the tumor inside your brain.
Holy crap.
And it basically cooks it from that. Brain surgery went well. Just ended up they Hannibal Lecter my head. So you can't see because they did really good job, but there's a scar that goes from here all the way down here, down to the side of my head. And they peel back your face and they cut out a piece of your skull, and then they go through and they bore up whatever's left of the tumor through your brain cavity. Is that a thing? A cavity? Or through your brain. And then they super glue your skull back together, peel your face back up, and sew you back together.
Can't see nothing, man. Hey.
It's, if I shave my head, you might be able to see a little.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Little bit. They did a pretty phenomenal job, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that doctor gets paid really well.
I would imagine
He was he was a black belt for sure.
Perfect.
I ended up resting for maybe 2 days in the hospital, and then they released me, come back home. So came back home and put me back on immunotherapy. So been doing that ever since.
How does that work? Do you just keep doing it for ever, or?
Yeah, my specific case, because of the aggressiveness of my cancer, it's lifelong.
Okay.
So
What does that entail? Is it a IV? Is it pills? What is immunotherapy?
yeah, I think it comes in different styles, if I'm not mistaken, because I do have a family member on my wife's side that he goes and takes pills, but I'm an IV. So I get a bag full of my secret sauce.
Or how
It's once a month.
a month?
Supposed to be a maintenance dose. So now the day to day is kind of dealing with the aftermath of, you went off the roller coaster. Every morning you wake up and you're thinking, well, I'm still going to die of cancer. And then you put your pants on and you make a cup of coffee and try to get out of your own head. Pretend that you're still have a really good chance of, teaching your daughter how to drive, and, maybe if you're lucky, walking her down the aisle, things like that. It's a lot, man. It's all I can tell you. For other people that are going through it, you're not wrong in what you're thinking. Just go through it. It's like one of those AA meetings that you hear about. It's a day at a time.
Mhm.
Some days I'm an absolute piece of shit. I don't do anything. I'll get up out of bed and I'll park myself on the couch, and that's my day, because I can't get out of my own head, which isn't fair. It's not fair to my family and my daughter. I'm very aware of that, but sometimes it's crippling. All I can tell people is, even if you can do just one thing that day, even if it's just checking the mail, that was something. Not every day is a trash can day. Some days you're very productive, you get things done, and you almost forget about it for a little bit. And I think that's kind of the ultimate goal that I'm trying to go for, is I'm trying to forget about it.
Yeah.
It's something that haunts your soul. And it's hard to walk away from, it's hard to step out from. But it can be done. And if not, you can do what I did. I reached out to my primary care to get on some antidepressants. because the days where I was a bag of shit and just sat on the couch, they were happening too frequently. And so I reached out not too long ago and I said, I'm out of trying, man. I need help to help me try some more. So he said, yeah, I get it. He was like, honestly, I'm surprised you haven't reached out sooner, just because of the last year and a half, almost 2 years of shit.
Yeah,
So
that's a long time to just be dealing with that, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with taking antidepressants. I mean, I've been off and on them for 20 years now, and shit happens, life happens, but in your situation, like, fuck, I'd be taking a lot of antidepressants. So the fact that you're just now getting there, you're a strong dude, man.
well, in the last medical consult I had, it really fucked with my head. It spun me through it because I'm eating so clean that I don't have to inject for diabetes.
Nice.
I ballooned back up to a hippopotamus. And then I was like, if I'm going to beat any part of this in my life, I need to eat clean. I need to start exercising. So I did. I stepped up my game. I just had that killer mentality and put my big girl panties on. And I fucked up every day, man. I'm working on the house, went down to California, built a main mod transmission for a Blackhawk. And then, it was 2 months ago, they go, I had to do a PET scan because I have to do a PET scan every 6 months. When they said, hey, we found 3 new spots of cancer. Like, what are you talking about? How did you find 3 new spots of cancer? My immunotherapy is working.
Mhm.
My brain surgery worked. I'm eating healthy. I'm doing all the right things. And they said, well, we're going to pass you off to OHSU because they have an additional treatment that that just got passed called T-cell treatment. So I said, okay. And did a consult with OHSU. And the doctor comes on and she says, we don't think it's cancer. There's no core. She says,
are they going to biopsy it or check it out? We don't think isn't a fucking good answer for me.
This is how it spiraled me into another thing. So they said, oh, you got new cancer. And I go, well, fuck it. Let me get a pizza. Let me get some whiskey. We're doing it. Yeah. Because if, I've been neglecting a lot of the stuff that I always enjoyed.
Yeah.
Besides golf. It's still golf.
All right.
But past that, I've just tried to be a lot more aligned, so I can be here longer with my family. And when they told me that, it just pulled the rug from me, fell flat on my face. And I was like, well, fuck it all. So there I go, chiefing cigars and drinking whiskey and all the bad shit, eating like a degenerate. Do the consult with OHSU, and they're like, no, we don't think it's cancer. It doesn't have a core. And I was like, then how did the people in Salem miss it? And they were like, we don't know. And I said, okay, well, what happens next? And I said, well, we're just going to push you back to Salem, and you're just going to keep doing immunotherapy, and they'll give you they're going to do an MRI for the one on your back, for the new spot on your back. My original oncologist, she left. She moved to a different hospital, which was a huge blow for Salem. She was absolutely phenomenal. Not just a phenomenal doctor, but a person as well. She was the person that gave you the shirt off of her back. If you had any kind of question, regardless of if it was stupid or not, she treated you with so much dignity. She was just a wonderful, I have nothing but wonderful things to say about Dr. Tiffany. If you ever get to see this, OHSU pushes me back, and then they fumble the next thing and they schedule my MRI. I think it's going to be here on the 20th of November, which is 2 months out from when they told me I've got 3 new spots of cancer.
Where's the new spots at?
They said one in my leg, one on the back of my neck, and one in my back. So I end up talking back with my doctor when I have to go for another round of immunotherapy. And he was like, hey, you got punted back to us. I'm like, oh, yeah. He was like, do you think that you have new cancer? And I was like,
bro, you're not the doctor.
I was like, hold on. No, I don't think I got it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had just had a cyst removed on my neck, and so the PET scan picked that up. And then I had burnt my calf on exhaust pipe on a motorcycle, which explained that one. But there isn't anything that explains the one in my back. So they're going to do an MRI on my back. I've had to face the death card so much. It's gotten to the point I'm not afraid to die. I just don't want to, you know. I and the biggest pull, it's like I even had this conversation with my wife. It's my wife and I, we have a blast together. We've had a decade of just awesomeness. We've ridden the roller coaster and, you know, loved every minute of a vacation or um, cried together and laughed together. I mean, we've lived a life, man. We really have, and I regret none of it. But what's hard for me is my daughter because she'll be 2 here in December, and I'm not ready to give up on that one. I'm not ready to have her grow up like I did without both parents, you know, without a father, and it's hard to say the least. It's something you can't put into words, brother. It's damning. Something that takes a part of your soul and just squeezes it.
Yeah. And I got nothing for that, man. I can't even imagine. I can't. I mean, I can imagine it, but being in your position right now, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you've gone through the internet and tried to find every possible thing you can do to figure out an alternative to what's, you know, going on right now.
I've looked down that rabbit hole. I'll be honest with you. I've been looking down that rabbit hole for 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't even know if this is something that gets banned if you talk about it, but I'll talk about it.
Let's go.
Just as a precursor, I am not a doctor. I am not anything in the medical field. I do not have a degree. Do not listen to me. I'm a mechanic and I'm a quarter retarded. So there it is. There's the disclosure. So I did get a video from from a fella, and it actually walks you through how they're through basically through the time of COVID, that a lot of these cancer patients, or not a lot, I don't want to say a lot, there was like four cases in this video that this doctor had specifically talked about, where one of these gentlemen, they had prostate cancer, stage 4 prostate cancer, been through chemo, radiation, chemo, radiation, chemo, radiation. And they said, no more chemo, no more radiation. The best you got is hospice. Here's your ominous dominus. Best of luck. And he ended up getting COVID. And through COVID, they prescribed him ivermectin. Well, the ivermectin, he took it. I don't know how much he took. I don't know how long he took it. I just know that he took it. I would assume for COVID dosage. And he came back for a 3 or 4 month scan and he was cancer free. Sent me down a whole different rabbit hole of trying to find other doctors that have found similarities. And there's an entire community of doctors that they're not allowing a huge voice in. And they're talking about cancer at its core is actually parasitic.
Mm-hmm.
And that ivermectin is actually curing people of cancer. Like this gentleman, after his 4 month scan, completely in remission. There's no cancer in his body when they just given him the blessing of hospice.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually went and I talked to all of my doctors, all 4 of them. And one of the doctors was actually really open about it. She was like, I have been reading things like that. There's been articles that have come out. She was like, it hasn't even really made it to test trials. Because what I'm assuming, the way my brain works is there's no money in curing cancer with a $1 pill.
Yeah. It's almost like they want to make money.
Almost like that. It's kind of like sidebar. It's kind of like what I found through being diabetic. People, if you're diabetic, well, listen to me. Carnivore diet. You can still eat vegetables. I always keep to the green vegetables, but just carnivore diet, you never have to inject. And you can even have a cheat, have a cookie, have a brownie. It's not going to skyrocket you because you don't have all the carbs, all the built up sugar to where you build up such a high on my blood sugar.
Is that what you're doing
Just
kind of now? Carnivore?
carnivore diet. I mean,
Yeah.
anything that's even close to keto.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like in my coffee, I use heavy cream. I don't use any of the sweetener coffee creamers
Yeah.
because it's sugar. And your body from just a real basic biological standpoint, it recognizes protein and carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is a sugar, and then there's vitamins. That's all your body recognizes. So it goes into one of those categories. If you're eating protein, you're not feeding your body the sugar.
And I've heard sugar is actually will exacerbate cancer and causes it to grow at it.
It does.
I'm not a doctor.
That's what they inject you with. They inject you with basically radioactive sugar water.
Yeah.
When they do your PET scan and stuff, they inject you with it. And the first thing that tries to pull is your prostate, down in your digestive and your prostate area. I want to say it's your liver, your kidneys, but I can't remember. Everything else, the cancer pulls all of the sugar. You feed your cancer with sugar. It pulls it. So you line up like a Christmas tree to where all of your tumors show up. And it's just a radioactive sugar.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Stay away from sugar and complex carb. We'll cheat every once in a while. You'll find out like a lot of English muffins are sourdough based. And you can have that. You can have a whole English muffin breakfast. You can have a bite of chocolate. It's not the end of the world. But if you feed yourself pasta, pizza, 2 slices of bread and potato and all the other things that are converted into sugar in your body, then you will always have to inject yourself.
So what did your one doctor said that, there's a possibility with the ivermectin. Have you looked into getting a prescription or finding a way to get it? Are you getting
so that was the one doctor. And she had said, well, I'm technically not your doctor. I'm your doctor if you were to go to T-cell treatment. She was like, so as of not being your doctor, and this is a consult, I can't prescribe you anything.
Yeah.
He said, you need to talk to your oncologist. You need to talk to your primary care or basically any one of your other doctors that would listen. So I got a hold of all my other doctors and really, really close-minded, to say the best. One of my oncologists that I have now, he says it's anecdotal at best. It just tells you that you haven't researched anything. I think that there's some prestige that comes with having a doctorate, an MD, especially, because it's like, you're not supposed to know anything that I don't know.
But here's the thing. Nobody's getting sick from taking ivermectin. It's not going to hurt you or make you any worse. Millions and millions of people have taken it, no side effects. And so why not throw everything at it? Give it a shot.
That was my plea argument with my doctor. I said, look, if it cures me, I don't know. But what I do know is it's not going to hurt me. And other people have had success with it. So why not try it? And he goes, I won't prescribe it to you. And I said, okay. Talk to my primary care. And he said, I won't prescribe it to you if you're using it for cancer. So it has to go through your oncologist. And I said, well, this is cool. So I got on the interwebs, made a phone call to a doctor, and they want you to basically pay them $100 a month so they represent you as your doctor, and then they'll prescribe you what you want.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to break the bank doing that.
Brother, I'll cover the $100.
Well, it's not the point. I don't know.
Didn't you just say you want to live for your daughter?
I'm trying to test drive the Ferrari. I'm not trying to buy it.
Hey, I'll buy you a year's worth of ivermectin. I'm serious.
$100. If you go further into the internet, get on the Google machine, there is a place online, and it's a company based out of what it rhymes with Schmorda.
Oh, no.
And you will just order what you want, however much you want. You fill out their survey and everything else, and then they mail it right to your door. So I'm actually on my 3rd dose, and I'm going to stop after this. So I've taken my 3rd dose as of maybe like 4 days ago. And I'm going to wait to see what my next PET scan comes up with, because as of the success of what I've had with my immunotherapy has been, all of my tumors are basically resolved. I've got one tumor left that's in my lung, and it really hasn't responded. It shrank a very minuscule amount. And then after that, it's just kind of been maintaining. If not, it decreases by a very, very small amount of uptake. So this is going to be
That'll be interesting.
it'll be the one to see if it actually works, because it's a tumor that hasn't really budged.
When's your next scan?
I think it's going to be January, February timeframe.
Okay, we're doing a follow-up. Well, seriously, we're going to let people know how this works out. So are you going to take it until then?
No, from everything I've read, people have taken it like they were treating for COVID, which is only like a 2 or 3 dose. And so what I'm going to do is a 2 or 3 dose. I'll go in for my PET scan. If it comes back that the tumor shrank by half, I'm going to take more dosage.
Yeah.
And go that route, because I've been on the immunotherapy for almost 2 years now, and this tumor is pretty set in its ways.
Yeah.
So if it comes back and it's completely resolved, then my forward vision is I'm going to be taking it probably 2 times a year, the Ivermectin, just as a precursor. Because if it is,
I don't know how often you
actually
can take it, but I would be taking that shit all the time.
the lesion that they found with the original cancer, I've gone through all of these dermatology checkups to where and I've had probably 10 or 11 moles biopsied over the course of that 14 years. Anything that looked funky. To this day, they've never found another mole or anything that leads them to believe that that is an offspurt of cancer. So what they think is that original cancer that I had in my collarbone area somehow tuck-tailed and navigated to a different part of my body. I'm assuming my lung, because melanoma likes to attach itself to big ticket items. So it'll do your liver, your kidneys, your lungs, your brain. When it runs out of immediate grab stuff, it just starts piling up in like fat cells. Little gee whiz information for you.
Nice.
If it does work and I come back and they're like, yeah, your last tumor is resolved, then I'm going to stockpile some ivermectin, and I'll be taking it. I'll cycle it 2 times a year, every 6 months.
Oh yeah.
I'll take a couple of doses.
Testosterone, ivermectin, testosterone. No. Start working out again. Man. Well.
So that's the long and short of my journey through all this cancer shit.
Man. Well, and I don't know, would you, obviously you had cancer pop up while you were in service. Would you say that from your service is probably a cause for this?
Yeah. They already backtracked it to deployments that I went on. And additionally, they'll backtrack it to your AFSC, or for Army guys, it's your MOS. Some people are just grandfathered in. So when I applied for the PACT Act, it just got rejected. And I was like, I don't understand. How did I get rejected for PACT Act? I mean, I'm checking the list on cancer, check. Brain cancer, check. Full body, all this stuff. And he was like, oh, it's because you're AFSC. So dealing with hydrologists, it actually shows you on the can it's highly carcinogenic. Use rubber gloves, use all your PPE, which anybody that's been deployed knows that that's not how any of that.
They don't have all that
on hand. When there's a mission to go, there's not like they give you those timeout cards and shit. You don't actually use those. Refuel these bombers before they go hit Iraq. I have to put on my rubber gloves and don my apron. They go, are you serious?
Get your ass out there.
Get your ass out there and make it happen.
Yeah.
But came through the PACT Act, and they were like, oh, it turns out your AMSC just grandfathers you in. If you have any of those symptoms, you're automatically enrolled in the PACT Act. You don't have to do any of it.
Oh, wow.
And so I didn't know that. But what I just learned is that you don't actually get PACT Act money the way that they told me I was going to. It's in the fine print. They consider my case secondary from a primary condition, so they had that thing where if you had filled out your paperwork and applied before, I think it was like September 8th or 4th or something, then they would back pay you for an entire year to that last September.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do that for me. And so I put in for a higher level review and talked to the gentleman on the phone. And he said that my condition would be considered a secondary, which I don't know how that's possible because they never paid me $1 or any type of medical or financial assistance through any of it from the time that I had it until 14 years later when I got it again. So I'm not sure what avenue to go next on that, but just to let other people know, don't be disheartened if it gets kicked back. I think it's written into the verbiage to where they're hamstringing some people.
Yeah. Well, if anybody out there knows of a way to make this happen, leave a comment in the comment section or reach out to us and we'll get that information passed along.
Yeah. Additionally, I went further down the rabbit hole and started looking up, because I was told that with cancer in general, they were supposed to do additional safety check protocols. And so I looked up for my cancer specific, and it just says that they're stay out of the sun, use your sunscreen, which by the way, don't use sunscreen. Public service announcement to anybody that does that. If you want to really find out what it does to you, look up banana boat lawsuits. That's all I'll say about it. But it's not doing anything for you. There's a reason why. I think I was watching an interview with one of these. I don't know if he was a SEAL or some special forces unit, and he said that they weren't allowed to use sunscreen. It's because it's basically a toxin that you cover the biggest organ in your body and your skin.
Yeah.
And it might shield you from some of the UV, but it doesn't stop cancer. It's actually carcinogenic to put it on.
We were spraying ourselves with DEET. Did you ever use that for all the bugs? And that shit, I guess, is terrible for you.
Yeah, well, we had the dumbed down version, which I don't know if it's any better or any less, but it's still not good for you.
Well, shit, man, you're on a crazy journey right now, but I have a feeling that you are gonna pull through this. Like, I know you will. And, whether it's Ivermectin, just power of your mind, power of your doctors, whatever it is, like, you're a fighter. You've been kicking ass this long. And I highly, highly encourage you to just keep eating the healthy stuff and working out and drinking water, staying away from any of those carcinogens or anything. But brother, I'm rooting for you. I'm not going to lie. I had a big cry before we started this fucking interview thinking about you, man. I can't imagine the shit you're going through right now and have been going through, and with your family and your daughter and, looking at the future. Like, I couldn't imagine having to go through that. I'm proud of you for keeping a positive attitude and keeping sense of humor, and like, you're a bad motherfucker, dude.
It's humbling to think that there's tens of thousands of people that are going through the exact same thing. If this gets to reach any of you guys, and obviously it is what it is. That's all you can say about it. But mentality is most of it. Just walk around like you're one of the toughest motherfuckers to kill.
Roger that, man.
Keep your head up.
All right, Derek. I appreciate your time, buddy. Thanks for going through this with me. We're going to do a follow-up in a few months and see how that ivermectin worked for you.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, much love, brother.